we doing? Good morning, everybody. It's an interesting subject that came up. Sometimes you go down those Wikipedia rabbit holes. You all know what I'm talking about, right? So, the question of the immortality of the soul, whether it's conditional or not, in various religions, is a fascinating subject that most people just assume. And the question is, where do we get this idea from? That souls are inherently eternal, as opposed to immortality being a gift that's granted for one reason or another. I didn't really manage to do any investigation on this in Islamic sources. But in Judaism and Christianity, these seem to be something that the average Christian and the average religious Jew assumes to be true. And yet, they never ask why. Where does this doctrine come from? Should we accept this as a dogma? Now again, I want to make a point here. Certainly true in Judaism. Judaism is not a very dogmatic religion. Most Jews would go so far as to say that there are no dogmas in Judaism. I beg to differ, and that's how my Rav as a child, Rabbi Belitsky, Zechor Levracha, expressed himself. Again, we're dealing with trying to translate words from different languages, which is difficult. So, Rabbi Belitsky would go to say that the 13 principles of faith, as expressed by Maimonides, or as expressed by other authors, not necessarily 13, maybe as little as 3, that the discussion in classical Judaism, medieval Judaism certainly is where this discussion became prominent, is to which aspects of Jewish doctrine are dogmas, essentially, which are the ikarim, the foundations, the fundamentals of our faith, the roots of our faith. That if you uproot these fundamentals, you've uprooted the entire faith. Ikarei emunah, the foundations, the fundamentals of our faith. I think the term dogma is applicable to those. And so then the discussion, as far as these issues go, meaning, for example, when the Sefer Ikrim only has 3 Ikarei emunah, and Maimonides has 13, but all of those 13 fit into those 3 categories that the Sefer Ikrim has. Even if these are matters of dispute, they're not disputes as to whether or not these are Jewish beliefs, whether or not these are valid, kosher Jewish beliefs. The question is merely, are these Ikarei emunah, are these dogmas, are these fundamental beliefs, that if one does not believe in these beliefs, one is a heretic, and now, with that being said, as I've explained many times, that does mean that if we believe Torah min hashamayim is an ikarei emunah, it's a fundamental dogma of our faith. So therefore, if someone would deny one of the aspects of our laws as being legally binding, meaning if one would deny that eating pork is a sin, even if a person would personally prefer not to eat pork whether for cultural reasons or for just taste reasons, whatever it is. This question of whether or not it is a sin for a Jew to eat pork, that is a matter of belief, that if one denies that, they're denying the concept of Torah min hashamayim, of the heavenly revelation of Torah, the divine nature of Torah, and therefore they would be a heretic. And heresy is a cardinal sin. It's the sin that covers all other sins, just like faith is the mitzvah that covers all the other mitzvahs. Like, the sages taught, how they understood it, that the prophet Habakkuk encapsulated all the 613 commandments of the Torah into the one commandment of faith, as he says, Tzadik b'emunas hayichya, that there are different ways to translate these words, but the way that it would seem that the sages are translating is that the righteous person lives by his faith. Although you could say the one who was justified by his faith will live. That's kind of more of a Christian approach. But although it's more of a Christian approach, it's not necessarily against anti-Jewish to interpret, to translate it that way, because essentially both are the same thing. Just different ways of expressing really essentially the same idea. But the reason I'm bringing all this up is to ask, what is the source for this doctrine of the immortality of the soul? Is it essential to Judaism? Is it biblical? Now, even if it's extra biblical, doesn't mean that it's wrong. We're not the sola scriptura approach faith. We're not, Karaites. We're not Sadducees, and we're not Lutherans. And also, that Lutheran idea of sola fide is not what Habakkuk is saying here. It's not how the sages are reading Habakkuk here. When it says that the righteous lives by his faith, and that Habakkuk that Habakkuk came and said all of the commandments on one, and that's Tzadik b'emunas hayichya, that the righteous lives by his faith, to mean that again, all of the commandments stand on that one commandment of faith, but there are also the expressions of that one commandment, that single commandment of faith. They're all in that category of faith. But again, what are we required to believe in as Jews? And the question would be the same for Christians, although again, that's where denominationalism comes into play. Because again, a Protestant who is sola scriptura, I don't think would have to believe in the essential immortality of the soul. They could believe in the conditional immortality of the soul. And even one who was not necessarily sola scriptura, I saw an article today from an Orthodox Christian, Eastern Orthodox Christian, expressing the same idea, that the immortality of the soul is conditional. So then we essentially have to ask ourselves, what is the nature of the soul? But the bigger question I think that we really have to deal with is, does it matter? Meaning, can one believe one or the other? Yes. And the conclusion I've come to is that there's nothing wrong with believing either or. You could accept either conditional immortality or essential immortality. Both, I would say, are kosher from the Jewish standpoint. Meaning, and the thing is like the essential expression of this question is clearly different in Judaism than in Christianity. But again, in traditional Christianity, it's not necessarily biblical Christianity. But does that matter? Obviously, the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church would say, or Orthodox churches would say that the doctrines of the church are essentially, what matters, not necessarily solo scriptura. And the same thing could be said in Judaism. Although my friend Rabbi Asher Meza, I'm not sure the source that he has for this, but he says that any doctrine that's not clearly Torah-based, forget about biblically based, but from the 5 books of Moses, you can't point to the 5 books of Moses to derive a doctrine, is not necessarily a doctrine, which is somewhat radical. It's not necessarily a dogmatic doctrine. It's not, meaning, again, you could believe in such a doctrine, but you don't necessarily have to have a dogma out of it. But the fact is that you can just point to verses in the Torah and not necessarily understand that to be doctrinal, a doctrinal statement. Meaning even Torah verses are not necessarily doctrinal statements. The fact that the Torah mentions demons doesn't mean that we're doctrinally required to believe that demons exist or not. I personally do believe that they exist. But I'm arguing with what Rabbi Meza is saying by pointing that Maimonides did not believe necessarily in demons, and yet demons are mentioned in the Bible, but they're not. But I think he would agree that they're not mentioned in a doctrinal way. They're mentioned in a poetic way. They're mentioned in what we could almost call a midrashic way, even though it's not. The term midrash is a biblical word that's been understood in a different way in classical Judaism, but not. But so again, this question of the essential immortality of the soul, how would we, in a simple way to explain it, what's the difference between conditional and unconditional immortality? And the essential difference in the Christian expression would be our souls burning in hell for all eternity. Is there anything in the Bible that tells us that the souls of the wicked are burning in hell for all eternity? This is something that one of our commenters brought up here. And I know one great rabbinical thinker who I respect a lot, even though a lot of people greatly dislike him, was Rabbi Victor Miller. I had the blessing to meet him. And Rabbi Miller expressed that the immortality of the soul is totally conditional. That somebody who lives an animalistic life, there's no point in them burning in hell for all eternity. That doesn't help them. They just stop existing. They're just like a bird, just like a bug, just like a dog just stops existing. The soul of the wicked just stops existing. And also the main thing that classical Judaism, certainly expressed as being a main source of concern was the resurrection of the body more than the immortality of the soul. And really the concept of the soul being unconditionally immortal is an idea that comes out of Moses Mendelssohn, who is not, very well respected in the Orthodox circles. And the fascinating thing, the Reform Judaism denied the bodily resurrection, and continues to deny the bodily resurrection. That's perhaps their greatest heresy of the Reform movement, is their denial of the bodily resurrection. And because essentially, if you're denying it, you're not going to get it. It's not going to happen to you. If you're denying the immortality of the soul. So there's a lot to be said. Denying the resurrection. But do we gain something by believing in unconditional immortality? I think we go in here. Yeah. Is this so I don't know, do we turn, is this a turning lane or a non-turning lane? It's hard to say. So these are issues that we have to concern ourselves with. I thought this wanted to turn. Not sure where I am. So again, these are issues that we do have to discuss, and we can find different answers to. It's not necessarily one answer, because we don't know. No, I saw this other than you, God. So it's not our job to be deciding, these types of questions. So all these issues are things we can discuss, but again, your eyes should be open. Where is this idea of the essential immortality of the soul come from? It comes from Greek philosophy. It doesn't come from biblical sources, and we should be aware of that. So, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment, and we'll talk to you all later. I gotta see where I am.